Good day, everyone, in whatever time zones you are. Welcome to the third edition of Publica, the international online fair for independent publisher, organized by the International Alliance of Independent Publishers and held in conjunction with the International Day for Bibliodiversity, which takes place every year on 21st September, which is tomorrow. Our session today is focusing on independent publisher in Asia. These roundtable are broadcasted on Publica website and also on the Alliance YouTube channel. If you do not consent to appear on screen, please turn off your camera. And we have with us today Amir Muhammad from Malaysia, Faye Cura from Philippines, Kake from Singapore, Mitia Osman from Bangladesh, and Saeed Husain from Pakistan. There will be time for discussion at the end of the roundtable. However, you are welcome to ask your question in the chat if you want. For first, I like the participant to introduce themselves in maybe like 3 or 4 minutes about what their publishing project are. So let's begin with Mitia.
Hello. My name is Mitia Osman. I'm the founder of Mayurpankhi, an independent children book publishing house based in Bangladesh, Dhaka. Since 2014, Mayurpankhi has focused on nurturing local talent and bringing diverse and vibrant stories to young reader with a strong emphasis on preserving and promoting our language, Bengali. We also publish in English. So we specialize in publishing children books that inspire imagination, creativity, and a love for reading while reflecting our rich culture. So as an independent publisher, our mission is to provide a platform for emerging writer, translator, illustrator, and to create books that resonate with local context, yet remain globally relevant. So, in the face of commercial pressure and the dominance of global narrative, we prioritize authentic, meaningful stories that shape the next generation of reader in Bangladesh, especially in children publishing. So, we are also committed to engaging with socially relevant things like gender equity while navigating the stubble form of censorship that impact creative expression. We have received a lot of award from our country. In the biggest award, we are very proud of it, and we are continuing to work on with publisher around the world, translating a lot of books. So this is how our publishing house is exploring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitia. Let's continue with Said. Said, please.
Thank you, Ronny, and thanks again to Biblica and the Alliance for hosting this event because it's very lovely to see all these other publishers from Asia. My name is Saeed Husain. I'm an anthropologist by training, and Folio Books has been established since 2018. So I'm the managing editor of Folio Books, and then with my colleague Bilal Zahoor, who was editor-in-chief, both of us run Folio Books together. Folio Books kind of has this leftist political background, and since 2018, that's what the mainstay has been. Bilal has a background in philosophy, and my background is in anthropology, and that's kind of like what the flavor of our publishing is as well. We mainly publish in English, but some of our works are done in Urdu, and I believe Ronny has a question later on as well about translations, and I want to get more into that when it's asked. But the majority of our stuff is in English, and we really kind of wanted to bring lots of Pakistani authors who publish abroad, but their works in Pakistan are very expensive because they're being imported. We wanted to like build a bigger base for them here and to kind of open it up to the local market, to the local consumer as well, so that they can access it. We do also work with several authors locally, but again, that's mainly based on political stuff. And there we have a small selection of fiction, but our mainstay is still very much kind of leaning towards some sort of either ethnic politics and then leftist political publishing. We're based both out of Lahore and Karachi. So I'm based in Karachi, but our main office is in Lahore. And once again, lovely to meet all of you today.
Thank you for the introduction, Saeed. Let's move to Amir.
Hello, good afternoon, or insert whatever time of day appropriate. Thank you, Ronny, and Alliance for inviting me. I'm the founder of a company called Buku Fixi. Fixi just means fiction. We started in 2011. We have to date published about 300 titles. Only 2 of which have been banned, so I can talk about that later on in our Q&A. Our target audience is young adults, university students, and sort of slightly above. We monitor our social media very religiously, and so we can see that that's the kind of age group that follows us. After they reach a certain age, they no longer have time for us, and so if you search the name of the company, it will come up with, "Oh, my life is so boring, I don't have time for Buku Fixi anymore." So we have to keep targeting their younger siblings because no one will stay loyal for 20 years on. We have some translated titles. We started off with very mainstay Western best-selling kind of writers, but we are very interested to veer into the hegemonic kind of countries. Just this week, we signed a contract with the Philippines, and we're also taking an Arabic language title. We found a really good translator from Arabic, so I'm very interested to pursue other options as well. So yeah, I mean, our mainstay is like Malay language fiction, but we're very much open to stuff from other parts of the world as well.
Thank you, Amir. Faye, please.
Hello. So I'm Faye Cura of Gantala Press. So Gantala Press was founded in 2015. We're based in Quezon City in Metro Manila in the Philippines. We publish literary anthologies, cookbooks, comics, and zines about or written with peasant women, indigenous women, women migrant workers, activists, and political prisoners. Our recent publications are a collection of essays on nationalist feminism written by a Filipino-American Marxist feminist scholar. Another is a translation to Filipino from English of the Russian communist Alexandra Kollontais novel, Red Love. And forthcoming is a collection of writings by victim survivors of the war on drugs, which has killed tens of thousands of poor Filipinos, especially in the previous administration. So our work supports the Filipino people's struggle for genuine land reform, which means farmers get to own the land that they till. Now, because we're an agricultural country, majority of the population are really farmers, peasants, and workers. And we also advocate for national industrialization, where resources are used by and benefit the local population. And we also join the struggle for national sovereignty. So that's us.
Thank you, Faye. The last one, Kay, please.
Hi, thanks everybody for having me here. I'm Kage from Ethos Books, a publisher based in Singapore. I must say independent publisher, because I think there's a difference between mainstream publishing and independent publishing, which we'll talk about later. maybe just a little bit of history, how Ethos Books came to have its name. Just a few days ago, my colleague Wai Han reminded me of the origin story of Ethos Books. She was in the car with her husband, Mr. Fong Ho Fang, who was the founder and the original publisher of Ethos Books. I took over from Ho Fang. So in the car, Ho Fang was thinking, so what name should we have for this publishing house? And in the same drive, Wai Han just had a vision, Ethos Books. So I think true to the name, we care for values and principles. And in Singapore, that also means that you can be looking out for people who have fallen by the wayside. So for example, in the recent years, one of our best-selling books was by a sociologist, Professor Teo Yu Yen, who wrote about this is what inequality looks like in Singapore. So that actually casts a spotlight on a very small group of people in Singapore, because most people know we have a very high gross domestic product. And but there are also people who are not actually seen. And in fact, they are even more invisible because they are not really always even covered by narratives. So another book that I can think of is Me Migrant, a poetry collection by a Bangladeshi worker, Buku Husain. So books like this actually give voice and weight to people's existence. And I think, so in terms of how I want to see Ethos grow, we are very relational, but I also believe that we need to have a culture of good practice. And that's why we need to learn about, say, best practices. And I believe in future, this particular panel to me means a lot because we want to do regional work with publishers, co-publishing, co-distribution, and that's how we can still hold our own in a world that is going to be dominated by the big players. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kaki. Then, after the introduction, now we can start our conversation. Like underlined just now that we are independent publisher, but what actually being independent publisher means in our respective countries and context. And I myself think being independent is always somehow entail some political vision in our works. What do you think about it? What do you fight for, and what do you gain in your publishing work? Can we start with anyone? Saeed, maybe?
Yeah, thank you, Ronny. And again, because joining the alliance as well has made me reflect lots and lots of what being independent exactly means. And I've always also assumed it's a question of scale, that if we're just small, right, at Folio Books, we're a very, very tiny team. So doesn't that make us independent? But really but we also kind of understand that we're really trying to take away from the mainstream political narrative that is being offered in Pakistan or even South Asia or globally broadly as well. And that's what we're trying to veer away from. And we focus a lot on ethnic and leftist politics, and ethnic politics can be quite big in Pakistan, but media censorship or even social media clampdowns will kind of have that be much lower. So we're trying to publish books that can, at least in a solid book form, be transmitted as much as possible to a broad audience. And I also think that's kind of where I start thinking of publishing as well, that how are we getting ideas across? We can get ideas across, from TikTok, and we can, as publishers, I think all of us need to understand that social media and stuff like TikTok will be the place where ideas are given across, but the book is still the main thing from which knowledge will be distributed. And being independent, being political, being leftist, kind of supporting, these ethnic political groups in Pakistan who are trying to subvert the majority in Pakistan. It means that once we're publishers, that we can spread across globally, because we do get, we're a Pakistani and some regional publishing house, but we get orders globally as well. And just so that we have that book as a canon, sending that out, I think in my mind or in Folio's mind, what we're thinking now is that we're independent because we're trying to subvert this. And I want to hear from everyone as well, because I feel this might be true, but I want to hear from everyone too of this independence. Is it, because we do get clampdowns as well, Amir Mohammed also kind of like said that like only 2 of his books were like banned, right? One of our books got us in deep trouble, but like it wasn't banned in the end. And publishing in English also means that there's not too much state repression on us, but publishing Urdu means there can be lots of it. And that has been very, very common in Pakistan as well. So I think also like, when you get a book like banned or like there's like talk about it, or like there's an attempt to be clamped down, clearly you're doing something right. And I think that also kind of like shows that there is an independence to the work that you're trying to do. Thanks again, Ronny.
Yeah. Thank you, Saeed. Let's move to Amir. Fixi book is published fiction, and it seems it's not like being political or something, but I believe that in maybe conservative society like Malaysia, publishing urban or youth fiction can be political too. And you said that 2 of your book has been banned. Can you explain?
Yeah, I've been thinking also about what it means to be independent, because I mean, we do have more traditional kind of leftist publishers in Malaysia who publish books by leftist political leaders and leftist history and all that. We don't do that. We tend to focus more on pulp fiction simply because that's the sort of thing I enjoyed reading as a teenager, but mainly in English, like imported stuff. And I wanted to give that choice as well to younger people. I think at the very basic lowest level, we are not owned by any political party. So because the reality of publishing in a country like this is that for maybe this is a bit outdated, but there was a time when the biggest publishing houses were indeed owned, like directly owned by political parties or their kind of subsidiaries, or very much aligned and that kind of thing. So I think if you're doing something beyond that, and I myself am not a member of any of these parties, that already signifies a kind of a willingness to not play that kind of game. And when we started 2011 for Malay language fiction, it was dominated by religious fiction, which is it's very Islamic, that kind of thing, or it's very romance, and it's a very certain type of romance where it's very safe and but also quite unusual in the sense that also a lot of red flag kind of male protagonists and wrapped up in a certain way. So we didn't follow that trend. So from the beginning we said, oh, we don't want this kind of books. So ours is more gritty, I guess, more realistic. We use slang, which used to be kind of frowned upon, but now more and more publishers also use slang. But the language we used was kind of attacked before. It's like low level Malay. But they have since sort of jumped on the bandwagon. And I think most recently, what we also did is that Malaysia, we have many languages spoken, but we have one official language, which is Malay. But we have sort of minority languages that have their own history as well. The 2 biggest being Chinese and Tamil. But we also have sort of indigenous languages like Iban and Kadazan. There have so far been hardly any translations from these smaller languages into the main language, Malay, because it's not considered politically correct. Like our government bodies that deal in translation, they don't consider these other works to be local. So they don't get grants and things like that to be translated. So ironically, you would have like a National Translation Institute, which we do have, and they publish things on French and Germany and Japanese and all that, but they don't translate from within, from other languages. So we've started doing that. So we published the first Malay novel translated from Tamil in our entire history as a nation, we believe. Even though Tamil is the third largest spoken language. And when we are going on, the next one will be from Iban, which is ethnic language from Borneo that has also never been translated out. So I think in that kind of way, we are kind of resisting the narrative that there is sort of a unique cultural, monolingual kind of reality or hegemony there. So yeah, so I think in that sense, independent.
Yeah, very interesting, Amir. Let's move to Mitia.
Actually, I think in Bangladesh, being independent publisher gives us the freedom to share stories that may not align with the mainstream commercial interest or conservative societal norms. So this allow us to explore diverse and meaningful themes that reflect on the social progress or cultural relevance. So I think this means that the publishing stories that resonate with Bangladeshi culture while addressing significant thing like gender equity. So this is a issue for like on the other hand, we fight against the cultural homogenization, especially in children publishing, which threaten the representation of the local stories. So globalized media often overshadow this. So we ensure that our children see themselves reflected in their books they read. Additionally, while we don't face direct censorship from the government like ban anymore, but societal pressure can lead to self-censorship. So in a conservative society, certain topics are considered too sensitive. So like politics, religion, which we have carefully navigate this challenge while preparing creative freedom. Yes, I will tell detail in more later. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to Faye. Faye,
Yeah,
please.
being independent means not being beholden to large institutions, no, like universities or the government or even large corporations that in doing one's work. So we don't need to listen to them, or they don't have the right to dictate what we can or cannot publish. So we're able to publish content that is critical of the government, no, content that exposes the various forms of state perpetrated violence, such as the red tagging of activists and of individuals, no. Red tagging is when you accuse individuals or organizations of being, terrorists or communists, ganyan. We're also able to expose human rights violations, such as the killing of activists. So we're able to publish content without much care for commercial viability, no, as Mitia mentioned, or without having to seek permission from authorities if such content can be released. So in the Philippines, we have quite a vibrant independent publishing community. So I'm happy to share.
But you said earlier that you support certain political movement. Does it affect your independence? Do you think?
It guides our independence. It guides us on which, for example, which actions of the government should be criticized and exposed. What's a better, world to imagine? What can we propose? What solutions can be proposed to address all of these problems that the Filipino people are facing? So our political ideologies guides us in what you call that, in identifying the enemy, identifying the enemy basically, and proposing what should be there what the government should be doing, what the people should be receiving from the government, etc.
Thank you, thank you. And Kage, please.
I had so many similar thoughts as the earlier speakers. So my conclusion is that independent publishers are very clear about what they need to be independent from. Maybe I can pivot this like attention of our audience and ourselves to something else. I think being independent also means you are able to be self-sustaining, that you can continue your work. There are so many small publishers. Okay, they can be independent publishers, but their small scale side you were talking about is scale also like a quality about being independent. I'm not sure, because I feel that you can be very small, but you can still not be like very discerning in the kind of content you want to put out. So I do feel that because we publish very specific topics that don't have mainstream appeal sometimes, so that means that the economics of publishing don't usually work in our favor. And that means that we need to be very good at funding or finding sources of support. And I feel that I'm so curious when Faye, you say that in Philippines, you have a great diversity and network of publishers. So maybe there will be certain collectives that have emerged to support one another. So maybe in Indonesia, I imagine, right, Ronny, that there will be, I believe that in the art scene, say, I see a lot of collectives in Indonesia that do great work. So I think in a way, being independent and finding ways to survive that is not typical of the capitalist kind of movement, right? That's also another way that we can define ourselves, how we can band together, create sharing economies and shareholding economies with our readers. I think that is something that we can also consider as being independent in publishing. Yeah.
Okay. Can you please give some example of your practice that beside the economic one that reflects the value of being independent, and that you think it will be better for the publishing scene in your country if everyone follows suit?
Maybe I'll start the ball rolling now. I just came from a Singapore Book Publisher Association meeting, and it's still ongoing, but I told them I have a better thing to do, which is this panel. so the first half of the meeting was about artificial intelligence. And a very big corporation, a publishing concern, definitely not what we consider independent publisher, they are signing deals with a very big tech company to develop their large language model. Yeah, so basically, this very big publishing house, they have signed their content to this big tech company to train their AI. And then they are now telling everyone in the room that we can join the bandwagon by becoming a content provider. So we can also give our writing to this particular tech company so that they can pay a bit for ingesting, right? Which is such a strange word, like they are digesting us or something. They are ingesting our content to train their language model for future, of course, commercial users. So when you ask me what are some things that say Ethos Books will be very careful about, that we will do carefully, is I definitely won't be sending content to be ingested by a big company like that without thinking about the implications and discussing with the authors. And all this time that will be taken to discuss, I think these are the little practices that will be lost if we don't value the independence of, say, maybe stepping aside, thinking about things, and not because now everybody in the commercial world, I'm sure everybody would have heard about AI, and everybody wants to go onto this new age gold rush where you're jumping onto the bandwagon. You don't want to be the loser. You want to go in first. But I think just now we talk about being independent. I think we are not going to go with the flow all the time. So even if it means that we may lose the first mover advantage, I think it's important that enough of us don't jump on the bandwagon so that it validates another way of doing work. Yeah, so this is one practice that I can sort of bring up. Yeah.
Thank you. Amir, it is very interesting that what you talk about minority language and what the popularization of slang through your books. What do you think if everyone is follow you, or do you think it will be better for Malaysian publishing scene or?
Oh, I don't think they're following me. I don't want to take credit. I'm not such a trailblazer because what I was doing was already done by people who do zines and that kind of thing. But it was never considered proper because when people talk about writing in Malaysia, they think of a few companies, some of which are government owned, and the language is very sort of rigid, and proper. So they think that is what writing is. But people who write in the vernacular and slang and all that, they tend to be the very underground zine kind of thing. So what we did was just take that into the mainstream. So I think others just joined when they realized that it made good business sense as well. Yeah. So it wasn't like that they wanted to be me or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Said, what's your experience on this?
Another thing we do that we learned from, I think it's a kind of a leftist practice as well. Like if we code switch, like we use a word in English or Chinese, which is quite common in Malaysia or Tamil, you use sort of phrases and then you don't write it in italics. Because that also was considered weird in the beginning. People thought this is wrong, like how come it's not italics? But our argument is that if a character uses it, it's not a foreign language to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And Said, can you speak of your experience on this?
Yeah, it's a tough one because we also use words from like Pashto or like other like languages in Pakistan. And yeah, I think this is a question that like every editor also goes back and forth because you can either just follow like AP style or something, right? And just like have that be the standard. As like Amr kind of said that like once we like stop italicizing them, that's really like the main like pushback that we can like really do. And one other thing that I wanted to bring up, from what I like said earlier, I completely agree. It's not like a question of like scale because even like those could be like funded in very like particular ways, right? And we lose out, on like the like jumping on the bandwagon advantage if we don't like join an AI model like first up, right? But I think the aim of the game is also that we should be sustainable enough that like we have, you need some initial investment to like get started. But after that, knowing the market to a certain degree that you know that you're going to minimally cover the costs, pay people's salaries, and then, publish the next book as well. And of course, like trying to find like small pockets of funding, but like never getting like a large sum of money, which will like tie you in and then force you to publish something that is antithetical to the entire thing. And then the Ethos books is like with us, and that's just against like like what we're trying to like really do here as well. So with both the italics, like trying to like think, okay, what are we italicizing, what are we not italicizing? Besides even the main text, just in the titles of books themselves of like, are we going to italicize something or not? I think, yeah, so agree on like both like, like the AI of like what we just discussed, but even like italics and like what like the language that we're publishing in. But this can even mean something as simple as, like quotations for the book, at the back, like a blurb or something. Who are the people that we are allowed to, like put at the back? For one of our recent books, the former Afghan president, Ashraf Ghani, the author wanted him to be there. I mean, you really had to kind of sit and think of like, okay, we're gonna write out like Ashraf Ghani, Do we say former president of Afghanistan? Do we say former president of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan? Do we add the word former there as well? Because there's also this debate, right? The Taliban have like come in and militarily taken over Afghanistan. What is the stand that like we as a publishing house want to make? What is the stand that we, with the author, want to make on this as well? So we wrote former president of the Republic of Afghanistan, but we cut out the word former as well. So just like a strike through on our Word document. And that's how the book then like went out. So even I think like being independent means that we have full control of like, how are we going to actually think about how this book will be taken in by an audience? And that's not the book we got in trouble with so far, but like, fingers crossed that like that stays that way. But yeah, I think just these like very minor things sitting like, in like a room, like, middle of the night. And these are decisions that we're like trying to make.
Mitia, I remember our conversation in other occasion about how we publisher in Asia wrap our book in plastic because the climate and everything is very different from the Europe publisher, and I remember we try to look for the alternative. Have you found any more environmentally friendly practice on this or
Actually, what other speaker says about independent publisher, I pretty much agree with that. I also like to add that as an independent publisher, we have a complete freedom what we want to publish. It is our decision, right? So we can do that. And it is our choice that should we join to the trend, what's going on in the market. And also it is our choice that what is this AI discussion. I'm thinking about always that every panel we have this discussion about AI, what is going on, what should we do? We should focus on that. Or what should is it my energy I'm going to put on this discussion? What is going on, or should I do what I like to do? What my principle is? So this is always my concern. I do not know actually the solution, but we generally at Mayurpankhi we do not jump onto the trend or what is going on in the market. And talking about the committed to the sustainability, unfortunately, environmental conscious production practice like using eco-friendly paper and fully sustainable method are yet feasible in Bangladesh. I mean, due to limited access to such material and infrastructure. So the cost of importing eco-friendly paper is high. The local availability of sustainable alternative is minimal. So I don't think it's still not possible in our country. However, we remain hopeful that this awareness grows and demand increase. The practice will become more accessible to independent publisher in Bangladesh and across region. So I believe that if more publisher engage in this conversation, we can push for meaningful progress in this area. But I think we have more problem in our more important problem in our mind than being sustainable first.
And Faye?
Yeah, I think just to build up on what everyone has already said, no, I think it would be great to really focus on local production, to focus on teaching and cultivating literature in local communities rather than and it would be great to like develop a local audience and the local community rather than aiming to go big or international, which usually means making it in the global north or selling being able to sell our rights or to the global north in the global north. So it's okay to stay small and local, no? And anyway, there's so much work to do locally in increasing, for example, here in the Philippines, in increasing literacy among our students. We're, I think, at the bottom of the list of the most literate of the, in terms of literacy among students in Asia. And we have a lot of work to do in influencing mindsets and decolonizing worldviews. So we have a lot of things to do here, as Mitia said. So we'd rather work here that instead of expending all of our energy to, make it big in the global north. So we also found that, by staying true to our work, by, not by being proudly small and local, our audience expanded on its own, particularly among Filipinos in the diaspora. So, we were able to find our own community by staying true and loyal and and truly independent. And then I just want to comment on the blurb thing. So the blurb is like a technique, no, for to sell books. So we also, in principle, we don't really request for blurbs because we can't afford to give complimentary copies, for example, to to writers, so that they can craft their blurbs. But anyway, in recent publications, we've had to put in blurbs, but we made it a point to invite not really the known writers or known personalities, but for example, we invited a woman farmer to say what she thinks of the book, etc. Why she thinks it's important. So I think there are ways, there are many little ways now that we can subvert all of these traditional practices in publishing.
Yep, I agree. Being small is mean also like resistant to the what overproduction ethos of the big companies. But something that bugs me for years. How do you guys uh, print? I mean the print run with this being small. How do you guys keep the price still affordable with little print run? Anyone can share their experience?
I can start with it. We are a children book publisher. We do publish 4-color book, so which is very costly. And our we don't have the book paper, which I think available in other countries. We have to import paper, and the price is really really high. So we cannot. It is not affordable to buy books, especially children books from our publishing houses. It's quite high actually. We So our print run is generally 1,000 because we can't print less than 1,000 for 4-color books, right? So this is the standard we have to do, and it takes generally 5 years to sell. 1,000 books. So this is the scenario currently here in our situation, especially for children books. Yeah.
Anyone else like to share?
Maybe I can share a bit. I really respect the small print approach, like by some of you in this panel. For us, right, to survive, we have to mix it up. We have some titles that we know won't sell, small print run, and we need to bring in some titles that we know will do better based on our understanding of the readership. So in Singapore, for Ethos books, the non-fiction usually sells better. So if we do one poetry book in this year, so poetry doesn't really do so well, but we love it. So we then have to make sure that we don't line up maybe 3 poetry books out of our 8 titles in a year. And that means we talk to the poet and we say, are you all right if we publish later? So that's how we balance out. So in a way, everybody in this project needs to decide how to sort of help to keep the cash flow going. Unfortunately, this is the economics we need to be mindful about. So my strategy is when we have a catalog, you have to then be very meaningful in how and intentional in how you plan the different types of titles with a very different type of reading numbers. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's move on the problem of freedom of publishing in our respective countries. Some of you already give some example. Do you feel restricted or censored while doing your work? Amir, can you tell us about your two books that been banned?
I think one of my projects is to do maybe a talk or a essay on the history of book banning in Malaysia, because it's quite transparent that the Home Ministry has a website with all the titles. There have been thousands of, so I think I'll do something about reading all the titles. There's no synopsis, it's just titles, and sometimes titles are quite strange. Just like so I want to do some maybe a sort of a performance art piece. Yeah, we've had two books banned. The first one took them 11 years to ban. It was published in 2011 and banned in 2023. And the second book took shorter, but still, I think it took about 5 years to ban. I think it just proves that the authorities are slow readers. So I think it's fine. Yeah, we're not that concerned about banning. And both were because the first was because it was sexually explicit, but it was, I mean, I didn't publish it because it was sexually explicit. It was actually meant to be sort of humorous. It's a parody of the Oedipus myth. But it's just funny. But yeah, and then so that was banned. And then the second one, because it was the central character is a gay man in his 40s. And that book is interesting because it had two different kinds of censorship. The government banned it because it looked like it's normalizing the idea that a gay Muslim man can exist. And readers didn't like it because they thought, how unusual. Someone is so old and he's gay. Because they just thought, if you look at the Goodreads reviews, they thought like, this is not the BL I wanted, because these guys are like my dad's age. Why are they behaving like this? So it didn't really have much commercial traction either. But yeah, I don't think we allow it to stop us, because we will still just publish whatever we want. And by coincidence, by the time those books were banned, they were already out of print. We didn't have any copies left. So the fines didn't because in the letter it says, if you're found with possession of this, you'll be fined. And they said, yeah, but we don't have the books anymore, so there's no fine in place. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the more likely books to be banned in the past would be anything related to communism, anything to do with Labour Party, even things like, anti-President Johnson, that's seen as like communist. But now it's anything against a sort of mainstream Islam, like to do with like Shiite Muslims, Ahmadiyya, that kind of thing. That's more likely to be banned. So I think it just reflects the progression or lack of progression we've made. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else, please?
Yeah, I can speak. Oh, sorry, Faye, go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think our authorities are both like fast and slow, because we'll have published a book, it'll be in the market, and then they'll realize, oh, this probably shouldn't be in the market, right? And so they've gone to like one of our printers and then asked, okay, who published the book? Why is this the thing? Because independent publishing really isn't a thing in Pakistan. It was a thing, but then in the 80s, when we had our big military dictatorship under Zia ul-Haq, that's kind of when everyone kind of left the country. So you had lots of intellectuals and academics just leave the country. And it's really impacting us till today. One of the reasons why we have Pakistani academics, publishing abroad is because they're doing their PhDs abroad, they find their publishers abroad, and then the local market actually can't access them. Like there will be a book for like 10,000 rupees. No one can really realistically afford a book that is 10,000 rupees like at all. So we try to bring that book down to, like to 2,000, 1,500, 1,000 rupees, about a tenth of the cost, because we print that locally. And there's a question about sustainability as well, because some of our paper has to be imported too, because the local paper quality can be very, very poor. So Pakistan and Bangladesh kind of have like share that like same like issue. But back to book banning, one of our books, it's called Rule by Fear by Amar Jan, who is a Pakistani academic based in Lahore. Book gets out, authorities go to, our printer says who did the book, and then Bilal at the time, who was very much like leading it, he has to speak to them and say, Amar did the book. It's nothing like against the authorities, like per se, and also it's in English. And that saves us massively because the English-speaking audiences in Pakistan, is still very low. Interesting, and this is about, the finances of it as well. Pakistan's population is just off the charts, right? It's like 220, 250 million people, something like that. And so even like a percent of that, or even like 0.5% of that is still a lot of people. And if we only publish in English, like 1,000 copy or even like a 500 copy print run, my aim these days is that if we do 1,000 copies of like a non-fiction political book, I want it out by a year. And we're trying to do aggressive marketing to get it out by a year as well. That's like my own financial like target in mind, that any single book, 1,000 copies by the year we need to figure out. Otherwise, we're like not publishing anymore. And I keep saying no to lots of people who I really don't want to say no to, but that's the economics of the thing. Back to the banning, though, I mean, we've had cases in which authorities have gone to bookstores and seized all the copies from the bookstore itself and then destroyed them afterwards. That's not been the case with the Folio book itself, but like that's been the case with translations. That's been the case with some English books too. And that's what we just faced. So it's both like fast and slow. Like after a couple of months, they'll see something getting popular on social media, and then the clampdown will start. Which is understandable, of course, like they're not gonna do it like when the ISBN number is asked for by the National Library. They will see how people are responding to it. And kind of that's when the kick-in happens. Yeah, so those are my thoughts.
Faye, please.
Yeah, so we ourselves are not, as a publisher, we're not being censored, but our allied organizations and our project partners are. So, for example, we've co-published with the National Federation of Peasant Women. We've co-published with them a cookbook and several literary anthologies. And this organization was, accused by the government of being communist financiers. And they used that that absurd reason to freeze this organization's bank account. So in order to immobilize them, no? So many people's organizations advancing national sovereignty, like the Federation of Peasant Women, organizations that fight for the upholding of human rights in the country, are being suppressed by the government in this way. So not us, but our partners.
Okay, we have one question from the audience, from Joanna, asking about what we talked earlier about how we fund ourselves, how we fund our project. Is it from crowdfunding, collective funding mechanism, or grants, or anything? Anyone have saying on this? Can you share the experience? Maybe
maybe
crowdfunding or
maybe I'll take this one as well, because I think Joanna was saying, referring to the term self-sustaining. I think that when I referred to, say, Indonesia and Philippines and collective movements, right? I'm very interested to kind of go beyond the usual idea of what self means, because if self is individual and self-centered, that's not the kind of self-sustaining I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about a collective self that can support different entities. And so definitely when Joanna, you say that the type of funding, does it affect our independence? I feel that independent publishers, like for example, all the individuals on the panel today, I definitely can feel that there's a very soulful side to you. Amir, you're like more like a comedian actually. You're so funny. Yeah, but there's this depth to your character that I can feel. So this is the kind of quality that I am referring to when I think about the self that we can work towards. And so when we can do funding in many different ways, yes, state funding is obviously very important, but it is always like going to be coming with strings attached. So in Singapore, we can't say get state funding for things that talk about race, that talk about religion, that talk about politics in a denigratory way. But what does that mean, you know? So that way, right, the state funding, it closes off very important discussions. And that's why we definitely have to grow other funding strategies, including crowdfunding, yes, including patrons who want to support you as anonymous people. So these are all different ways that we need to become self-supporting and self-sustaining. And I think it can build up our character, even if it's not ourselves individually supporting our individual needs. Yeah, because I find that is probably an assumption that the self-made man is about. I don't think we should perpetuate this kind of like I need to stand on my own 2 feet. Yeah, so maybe this is just my perspective, and my own experience is, yes, we have done also crowdfunding for poetry and we have also done state funding for books that can be supported. We don't cut ourselves off from taxes because taxes come from the people. Why shouldn't the people money go into books for the people? Yeah, but not all the time we can use state money, unfortunately. Yeah.
I'd like to share about Gantala's practice also. When it comes to self-sustaining, I super agree with all of everything that KG said. But with Gantala, for example, we're very lucky to have a community that really supports us. For example, some of our authors waive their royalties and they prefer to or they choose to donate their royalties to the press in order so that we can afford to print print more books. And then our artists, our layout designers, sometimes they give us a comrade fee, so they don't really charge us the usual fee that they would charge commercial publishers, for example. So and then of course we also receive unsolicited donations. So organizations, student organizations, they have this projects, and then the proceeds from the projects, they donate to us, so to support to show their solidarity with what we're doing. So it's really important, the community that KG mentioned. And in this way, this also shows how how collaborative independent publishing really is, and it involves a lot of people. It involves a lot of help from friends and comrades and allies also. So it's very collaborative. So when you produce a book, the byline is not really important, the main author, because there are a lot of people behind the creation of a certain title of a certain book.
Okay, Joanna also asks about our use of digital platform, maybe to avoid censorship. Anyone has experience in using ebook or something to avoid censorship?
Ebooks, Ronny, if I could, ebooks we're trying to like understand. I would like to go to the previous question, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course.
Funding models. Yeah, we try to work with academics as much as possible to work with the universities as well, because the universities will have small pockets of money. And the thing is, right, the Pakistani rupee is such a devalued currency that, $1,000 somewhere, actually is worth a lot of money in Pakistan and can actually push lots of projects like ahead. So now something to like fund a translation, even to like publish the book, even to like organize events, like we're constantly working with our authors that if there are small pockets of money available like in their universities or in their circles or any other collective that they're a part of, we will help them apply for it, because that kind of like pushes, like their book out, essentially, right? But also just the insane level of people skills that are required to like run an independent publishing house, like as Faye like mentioned, like authors, waiving like royalties, and like ultimately being small and independent publishers, authors are become our friends, like, and it's a great relationship that we like share with our authors too. Like, and this also means that if they want like like more gratis copies, then we give them more gratis copies as well. There's like these very like basic like things. But like when we're hosting events in like event spaces, like a place might cost like 60,000 rupees for like 3 hours. We like talk to the event and like say, can you give it to us for like 20,000 rupees? And talking to them, like, again, we are a small publishing house. Speaking with a big publisher, if we're trying to like buy rights for the book, like there'll be like some ridiculous costs, like to get the rights. And then speaking that like, we are a small independent publisher, speaking to like the author saying, can you like, get the rights or something, and then speak with your publisher to get this. And that works in 90% of cases. Lots of event spaces we just get for free as well. Because some authors will be part of like some like nonprofit or some other place, and we'll have an event space where we can actually like launch this stuff. Digital platforms, I think what's interesting in Pakistan, this is true globally as well. Twitter spaces or spaces on the new name X is like much more like common now. Lots of activist groups in Pakistan have been like using that, and Twitter is technically banned in Pakistan, but like we have like VPNs that we're trying to like circumvent it. But Twitter spaces have like become like an arena where we actually can just have lots of people like join. But again, like launching a book versus like talking politics are like two different things. And to attract like a larger crowd, we just kind of say that like we're talking like politics or something. Or even at an event space, like organizing a stall. So we have like the Karachi Literature Festival had some ridiculous price to put a stall on, right? So we just like joined forces with another like local Urdu publishing house, and then we kind of like shared resources to like like share the stall space. So that's the kind of like even like little pockets of money of like any like Western university, very happy to take money from them all the time. And then sharing like resources with smaller publishing houses in Pakistan.
Thank you, Saeed. KG, it's already 1 hour. You are excused to leave if you want.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Ronny, for making me exit so nicely because I have to go for a last-minute meeting. So it's been a pleasure being on this panel with all of you very wonderful people. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Joanna Roccato, everyone. Thank you so much for your answer, slightly smiling face. Hey.
Okay, my next question is about this kind, like we are doing now. Do you think it will be useful to make a kind of union of alliance linking publisher across Asia? It's because although we are in the let's say in the same region, we use a variety of language so different from each other in our publishing world. And do you think publisher in Asia face the same problems?
I can start with it. So the challenges independent publisher face are universal, right? The variety of language, the cultural context, the audience expectation across Asia are significant barriers. So while it's true that the independent publishing publisher across the region share the similar, common struggles such as limited research, market competition, censorship, societal pressure, the solution or approach often need to be tailored to local context, right? So, for example, the strategy need to navigate censorship or promote local literature in one country might not be directly applicable in another. So, especially when culture sensitive vary widely, language barrier difference also present a considerable hurdle, not only in communication but in the type of literature we produced and the audience we serve. So, moreover, the diversity within the region can lead to different priorities. So, as a publisher in a highly conservative society, may have different immediate concern than one working in a more liberal or diverse context. So while knowledge sharing is beneficial, but a formal alliance might not address the specific need of each religion effectively. Instead, I think in the smaller network or localized collaboration may be more practical for addressing these unique challenges.
But sharing experience is always useful, right?
Yes, of course.
Anyone else?
Maybe I can go next. So I think that it can definitely be done, no, as demonstrated by the International Alliance of Independent
Yes.
Publishers. No? It's a fine example of publishers getting together to advance industry-specific causes. Another example is the Publishers for Palestine Network. I think the diversity of languages is not prohibitive, no, but it in fact multiplies the possibilities that member publishers can do in their own countries when implementing campaigns. So, for example, with Publishers for Palestine, they encourage publishers to produce and share Palestine-related content in their own languages. So the awareness of the issue of Palestine is spread to many countries. So actually, Gantala is part of a network of grassroots feminist organizations in Southeast Asia. The member countries are Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia. So the network endeavor, it's called the Southeast Asia Feminist Action Movement, or CFAM. So it endeavors to empower grassroots organizations in the face of various gender-specific issues in each country. So I think that an alliance of publishers in Asia can also do that, no? Like support campaigns in specific countries, for example, against censorship, or to call for the release of imprisoned writers, no, which are a lot. Like in the Philippines, we have a lot of imprisoned writers. And it would really help if friends from the international scene would help amplify the call for their immediate release. In CFAM, no, despite the variety of languages, we were able to sustain the network through with projects and activities, including a feminist dictionary, no, in Bahasa, Tagalog, and in Malay. So it can be done. Of course, for the most part, the language, the main language of communication is English, but we relied a lot on interpreters and translators. So that's why we as publishers should really invest in translation also, and language interpretation, because it will really help us. It will really help us a lot.
What do you think, Saeed?
Yeah, I mean, I can just kind of reflect on, like, since, like Folio has been communicating with like Kami and like even just the alliance like at large. And, it's the reason why Kami connected with Folio Books in the first place is because we had signed on to a petition when Frankfurt horrendously, took out that author, with in regards to Palestine. Like that's kind of like how Kami like found Folio Books. And kind of that's like an instant connection. And like besides that, I really wouldn't have, like heard about the alliance like till like a very like much like longer time like afterwards. I would not have like met like any of you. I got a hearing that all of the same face, similar to the same problems is both scary but also heartwarming at the same time. Like we have this like the same parallel going across. It was also kind of earlier mentioned that we wouldn't, have like the same solutions, but we do have very similar problems, like, I mean, book sustainability is like something we think about, and we know the fact that we have to like import like some paper, and some paper is done like locally. We have to like decide like which book gets like what kind of paper. And unfortunately, these are just business decisions that we like have to make at the end of the day. But, even just having, an alliance like locally to see, where are we getting our paper like from? Is there like some place in like South Asia or Southeast Asia or Asia more broadly where we can actually, like source, paper from a much more sustainable way, sort of paper coming, from like Sweden or like from any other like Nordic country. I think this is, as a collective, a more formal endeavor, can actually be part of, like a manifesto of like because we have political manifestos, but we're very similarly aligned in that space. But I think talking like climate change and like even about sustainable printing, how much are we printing, what are the print runs, that can also be formalized, not as a requirement of like membership, but that can be like discussed and debated. And I think that will really like kickstart. Because when I saw your question, Ronny, that's not something I was thinking about like whatsoever. But I'm kind of glad that you asked it, because that's made me think about it for the last, like two weeks now. Who are we getting the good paper for? Where are we getting it from? I think that alliance would kind of like push us towards, finding like much more like regional solutions, which would be much more beneficial than going to like Europe to get our paper.
Yeah. Amir, do you have something to say about this?
I think something that where we hear about other people's experiences and all that, I think that's always useful. But I don't know if it needs to be a formalized kind of thing. And just to ask also among the rest of the group, which book fair in Asia are you most likely to attend personally? I mean, not Zoom. Is there one? Is there one single one that in the continent of Asia?
Yeah, actually from Bangladesh, we generally go to the Bangladesh Publisher Association always participate at Kolkata International Book Fair, our neighbor country. So yeah, we always only go there as a part of the association. They have a stand, so as Bangladesh stand, so we are part of it. Other than no, there's none.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I like to following up from Faye earlier about translation and Palestine. We use translation sometimes as a solidarity, like in this case of this Palestinian cause. We translate Palestinian author. Uh, how much do you do translation in your publishing practice? Do you do it also as a kind of amplifying, like foreign or underrepresented voices, or you use it for other purpose, this translation? Like Amir said earlier, he now translate from Iban. It's clearly have like more political intention in the literary and political intention. Please.
I can start with it because we do actually, because translation are actually integral part of our work at Mayurpankhi. We see them as a powerful tool for solidarity and cultural exchange. So by translating international stories for local reader, we foster a deeper understanding of global narrative. In turn, we bring Bangladeshi literature to a wider audience also. So in turn, so beyond amplifying the diverse voice, translation helps bridge cultural gaps. So, but as an independent publisher, we often can't afford to buy the translation right for all the book we love to publish. So instead, we collaborate with other publisher in the right exchange model, where we publish each other book in our respected language. The method foster cultural solidarity while sharing important stories within our financial strength. Na? So this our respected language. So this allow us to share important stories that we want to publish with the uh, publisher we'd like to publish. So the cultural exchange, not like we can buy rights with a lot of money. That's no. Sometimes we get the grant from the foreign publisher to publish translated books. So yeah, Mayurpankhi, we do this kind of translation actually. As you know, also that I have translation exchange with Johari one of its book we published here in our country. So this like this we do this kind of translation.
Hey, you translate Alexandra Kolontai.
Yeah. Actually, we only recently went into translation. We started with a Tilted Axis Press. It's a small, it's an
Oh.
independent publishing house in the United Kingdom. They invited us to collect Filipina writings in translation in, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. No. Yeah. And we took that opportunity to publish writings by women who are not really writers. No, so we sourced texts from farmers, from workers, from migrant workers, from Muslim women. No, those weren't really usually translated or aren't usually read in books. So that's how we got into translation. And then just to build up on what Mitia said about the cost of translation rights, that's why we chose one factor for choosing Kolontai was because her work is in the public domain. No, and our next translation projects will be of works that are in the public domain. So, for example, Nadezhda Krupskaya's works, no, on writings about Lenin, etc. So we also want to translate classic literature by women to Filipino, basically. But we're not translating for an international audience.
Okay. From the audience, do you have a question? You can speak or type your question in the chat. We still have like 15 minutes, right? Okay, let's while waiting for Corpora X, can you make a living out of publishing, or you do other thing too? Anyone like to share their experience?
Yeah, I think this is also related to the earlier question about grants and all that, because I think 90% of our income does come from regular sales. We have some best-selling titles that require reprints of 10,000 copies each every time. But most of our titles are like 2,000 copies per print run. So the bigger selling ones will subsidize the smaller selling ones because they're sold for the same price. We have a standard price of $6 US, so it comes up to that. So and because we encourage people to buy three, so if you buy three, it's like a package discount. So maybe one or two will be bestsellers. Then the third one is like they buy so that they can get the discount rate. So I'm quite fine with that. And we also make use of grants that we can apply to. Recently, the government is big on this thing called matching funds, which is, they don't fund outright, but you have to prove you're putting in half, which I think is fair enough. And we have done crowdfunding as well. We had a series of children's books with unorthodox subjects. And one of which was, for example, we did a pictorial biography of the most notorious Malaysian armed criminal from the 70s. So it's like a children's picture book telling the story of his life. So the pitch was to, what an unusual subject, you've all heard of this criminal. Now let's see it in children's picture book form. So, that kind of thing people will support because it's kind of unusual. So that one, it kind of makes money from the crowdfunding rather than the sales itself, because people just like the idea. And of course, when they crowdfunded, they got the book for free. They got the books for free. So I think that was the core audience as well. I'm not rich from it, but I do earn a living from it. And we have full-time staff of 13 people. With people who work for us tend not to quit. They stay. I think because we don't work from office, we've never had an office because I believe that we should not have offices. I think it's a terrible thing. It's a soul-destroying thing. So I think people know that even though our salaries are not great, they are free to do other things as long as they, deliver things on time. So I think that's the kind of work-life balance. So I think if we're not expecting a luxurious life, if you think time is also a form of wealth, then yeah, I think I've earned a living from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can say, that I haven't done folio books, like other than like in an only for doing folio books kind of context. And I kind of like keep thinking for like the last like 2 years at this point, like, if I should just go full time with folio. I do day jobs, like I work in museum development in Pakistan, or like I'll be teaching in Pakistan as well, or like other like forms of consultancies. But I keep thinking that like I'm trying to like plan out, like upcoming years as well. If there's like even like 3 to 4 or 5 months where I can like give full time to folio, and then see how the financial model is coming in. We have like a very, very tiny team, and we pay salaries, to them. That level of sustainability, like I'm fine with, like as of like right now. But I keep thinking as well, and constantly, because when I have only done like just consulting work, and when I haven't like held a 9 to 5 in those situations, again, like my time is just my own time, right? And like that's been, extremely gratifying as well. It supports the publishing house like well enough, but I haven't gone like full out yet, in which I've like only done folio books as like a full-time thing.
Faye, you like to share them?
Yeah, I do make a living out of running Gantala Press. But for a long time I didn't receive any salaries. I did it for nothing basically, no, because I had a full-time job supporting me for the first few years of Gantala, until I finally quit my full-time job because I want to focus on Gantala Press. And like Amir, we rely on on sales, on the sales of the books, and also on funding. So we're privileged to have been able to receive a grant from a human rights organization that that could support us for maybe 1 or 2 years. So that means we're able to pay myself, as the full-time loan staff of Gantala Press, and another finance officer. So yeah, we rely on grants, and then we take it as the grants come. It's not so long term, and it involves a lot of sacrifice. And also, like what Amir said earlier, if your living is not so extravagant, if it's simple, I think you can afford to to um to make a living out of small press or independent publishing. Just live the simple life. For me, my salary goes to my cats. That's the most expensive expense.
Okay, the time is almost up. I thank everyone here today. Yeah, I think all the our speaker today. It's very insightful and inspiring talk. It gives me, and I hope it give us too, a lot to think about the independent publishing in the future of it, for us publisher in Asia, or book lover, or whatever. And